It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. Sky News learns that the UK's growth forecast is to be downgraded as business leaders warn the Chancellor not to inflict death by 1,000 taxes in Wednesday's budget. Donald Trump talks up the prospect of a Ukraine ceasefire, but the Ukrainian president warns that he won't give up land to Russia. The chair of the BBC tells MPs he regrets the mistakes which led to an impartiality crisis at the corporation. Nigel Farage backs calls for an investigation into foreign influence on UK politics after the jailing of Reform UK's former leader in Wales. Plus,
you can get it if you really want, but you must try.
Tributes to the reggae pioneer Jimmy Cliff, who has died at the age of 81. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's coming up in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Hello, good evening. With less than 48 hours until the Chancellor delivers her budget, Sky News has discovered that the UK's fiscal watchdog, the Office for Budget Responsibility, is to downgrade its growth forecast for 2026 and every other year that remains of this Parliament. It adds to the pressure on Rachel Reeves, who has indicated that she will raise taxes to fill the hole in the nation's finances when she steps up to the dispatch box on Wednesday. Well, today, business leaders warned her off that approach, appealing to her not to inflict death by 1,000 taxes. Our deputy political editor, Sam Coates, has this report.
Businesses can now be certain that we're never going to have to do a budget like that again.
That, the promise after the budget a year ago, still on business leaders' lips today.
I'm really clear. I'm not coming back with more borrowing or more taxes.
But 12 months on, the Chancellor can't keep her word. Labour's pre-election pastry offensive feels like a long time ago.
What do you expect to feel on Wednesday with the budget?
Trepidation.
Uncertain.
Concerned.
Uncertain. Stability would be great.
If we reject the doom-mongers and the naysayers...
48 hours out from the budget, the business secretary sent out to insist they still share an agenda.
The number one mission of this government is and remains economic growth.
But also to beg for understanding.
We are acting. People know that I can't just wave a magic wand and it happened today. But don't give the impression that we're not acting on energy prices, because for businesses that need that help the most, they're getting it.
You say that growth is this government's number one priority. On Wednesday, we're going to see £17 billion more spent on welfare. How is that helping growth?
Well, again, let's see what does happen on Wednesday. I accept that we need more urgency, we need more boldness, because we inherited a growth emergency. We are still in that growth emergency that we inherited.
Similar language from a predecessor, now the Tory leader.
We need something very, very radical to start tackling this perennial growth issue. And that's where the Chancellor needs to focus on in her speech on Wednesday.
She has no time for the Chancellor's complaints.
We heard from Rachel Reeves at the weekend. She was complaining about people mansplaining her about how to be Chancellor. What did you think when you saw that?
I'm not a man, and I think she's doing a terrible job. I don't think she can call that mansplaining. A lot of people out there in the country, men and women, thinks that she needs to cut tax, and if she raises it, then she should go. That's what she should be worried about.
I've been talking to companies large and small at this conference, and they say that the Chancellor should be doing the opposite of what she's planning for Wednesday's budget.
The boss of the CBI says take the tough decisions now.
So do you think the Chancellor should put up income tax?
What we've said to the Chancellor is better to make one big, brave decision rather than 20 decisions which will distort our economy, which don't lead to growth and investment, and don't raise as much money as you need to ensure that the public finances are really stable.
The Chancellor said that those with the broader shoulders should pay the most. So why shouldn't big business pay more?
The overall tax burden on business is at historic highs. There isn't any more room for manoeuvre, and we've got to remember it's our big and small employers who are creating the jobs, the investment, the higher living standards, the prosperity that people desperately want to see.
Hello, what can I do for you?
The economy needs an adrenaline boost, but the money in this budget is going on shoring up Keir Starmer. The long-term challenges remain. Sam Coates, Sky News, Westminster.
Well, one sector struggling in the current financial climate is the nighttime economy. The cost of living crisis has forced many consumers to cut back their spending on going out. Our chief North of England correspondent, Greg Milam, has been to Halifax in West Yorkshire to see what people working in the sector really want to see from the Chancellor this week and whether they think they'll get it.
The nighttime economy is a good measure of just how much our towns and cities have changed. And on a night out in Halifax, with the budget around the corner, people have a lot to say.
What's your sense of how people feel about the state of the economy with the budget coming up?
I'm sure people are kind of wary about it because everyone who knows anything about it knows that they're inheriting a dire financial situation. I accept that the government needs to raise money, but is it? In this day and age, I can't think there's better ways to go about doing that. Closing tax loopholes, or the huge businesses.
There are decisions that are made, and people on the ground level, people in everyday society, I think that we're seen as statistics. I think that we're always the afterthought, so things, cuts, they're always done, but it's always us that are impeded. It's always looked at, well, if we take that from there, that might paint this picture, but the ramifications that have for people's livelihood, for people's mental health, for people's passion and drive, it's such a struggle.
Everyone's skin, it's insane, right? If there was something that could be done that would lift mood, would solve some of these issues.
Can we stop triple locking the pensions, please?
Yeah, I mean, as a young person.
Stop giving pensioners everything out there. For God's sake.
Good evening, Halifax, and welcome to Homage to Fromage. We've got some fantastic autumnal cheese this evening, so with no further ado, 3, 2, 1, cheese.
I myself, I have my own business with my partner, and we're finding it much more of a struggle being self-employed and trying to get by.
Is there one or two things that you think would make a difference, either to your business or those household bills?
I mean, there's no magic wand, is there? Where's the money going to come from? You know, our councils don't have the money. They're all in so much debt. You know, I think investing in smaller businesses, investing in these northern towns where at one time we were making all the money for the country. You know, can we not get back to that? Can we not invest in local industry?
First thing for me would be a wealth tax. It's absolutely critical. I think we need to address this question of is there any money left? There's plenty of money. It's all about choices.
There are things you hear over and over again. People want the welfare bill cut, for example, but everyone wants what they care about protected. As for making the numbers add up, no one seems to have the answers.
And I think the government needs to start putting some initiatives in place. You talk about growth, but in reality, the only thing that we're seeing growing is our costs.
How many feel the same as him? How many feel it's time for something to change? Greg Milam, Sky News.
Well, tonight, Rachel Reeves has urged Labour MPs to support her budget on Wednesday, telling them politics is a team sport. The Chancellor also told Labour backbenchers that she'll focus on cutting 3 things: the cost of living, NHS waiting lists and the cost of debt, and suggested it was a package, not a pick and mix. Well, a reminder that Sky News will have full coverage of the budget from 11 o'clock on Wednesday morning, hosted by Sophie Ridge and our political and economic teams. Now, President Trump has hinted something good may be happening in talks aimed at ending the war in Ukraine. But the Ukrainian president has stressed that his borders cannot be changed by force. And Russia has indicated that it believes European efforts to change an American-backed ceasefire plan will not work. So, is a deal possible? Our security and defence editor, Deborah Haynes, reports.
In Ukraine, no end to Russia's war, despite international efforts to talk peace. Russian drones devastated this residential area in the second city of Kharkiv.
As a result of the strike on private households, houses were ruined and destroyed. 2 people were killed, 1 woman and 1 man.
The attack came as talks in Geneva between American, European and Ukrainian officials ended with what was described as a refined peace framework.
There's a lot more work still to do, but the key thing is that Russia now needs to come to the table and to stop the bombardment of Ukraine. As we saw again last night, we need that just and lasting peace for the people of Ukraine.
Donald Trump, posting on social media, said, "Is it really possible that big progress is being made in peace talks between Russia and Ukraine? Don't believe it until you see it, but something good just may be happening." Yet Ukraine's president needs to ensure an initial 28-point proposal put forward by Washington that favoured Russian demands to keep Ukrainian land is diluted. Taking care not to upset the US side, he shared his concerns with Sweden's parliament.
Putin wants legal recognition for what he has stolen, to break the principle of territorial integrity and sovereignty. He wants it not only from Ukraine, he wants it from the whole world, and it's very dangerous.
In Moscow, an advisor to the Russian president said much of the initial 28-point plan is acceptable, but proposals put forward by the European side are not. The reaction on the street, similarly gloomy.
I don't think it will happen. This plan won't work. The Europeans won't allow it.
Ukraine will try to make changes, but the question is, will anyone listen? I think not, because the positions are very unequal.
Yet, under daily Russian bombardment, Ukraine needs its voice to be heard, or else suffer this carnage in silence. Deborah Haynes, Sky News.
Well, let's look in more detail then at the different ceasefire proposals under discussion. Our defence analyst Michael Clark has been reading the fine print.
The 28-point US peace plan, which seems to have been based on some powerful Russian drafting, is not the only diplomatic game in town, but it does serve as the unavoidable point of departure because President Trump has put his personal stamp on it. It's based on the realisation that for a ceasefire to become a reality, Ukraine will have to accept that it's lost control of 20% of its territory that the Russians have so far conquered. Though Kyiv will not give up on its legal claim to all of its territory, whether the Russians occupy and colonise it or not. But what Kyiv says it won't accept is giving up the 4 fortress cities that have held out against the Russians and their separatist militias for 11 years now, since 2014. And those cities are strategically vital to defend territory to the west, right up to the mighty Dnieper River. And Ukraine has sacrificed so much blood to defend this line. It would be a bitter pill indeed to abandon these cities to a proposed Russian-controlled demilitarised zone. So the European version of the 28 points suggests a ceasefire in place with no demilitarised zone, the line of control defined by where the forces are at the moment. Now, this is a fundamental difference between the US and the European versions. Another difference is in the number of people Ukraine will be allowed to have in its armed forces in the future. The US version said that the Ukrainian forces would be a maximum of 600,000 troops. The European version suggests 800,000, which is quite close to the 850,000 who are currently mobilised in Ukraine and in peacetime, implying there could be more if a ceasefire broke down. Of course, any such restriction undermines the principle of Ukrainian sovereignty. But in sheer numerical terms, well, they could probably live with it if other aspects of the deal were satisfactory. The complete US plan was 457 words long. Only 6 of them were devoted to the most important issue of all, what security guarantees Ukraine could expect. And these are the 6 words. The European draft went with a one-word change to robust on that one. But then the Europeans go for the killer point. Since the deal would mean no NATO troops or help or support anywhere inside Ukraine as a deterrent to further Russian aggression, the only logical robust guarantee would be a US guarantee that mirrors NATO's famous Article 5. And that would imply that the US would go to war against Russia in Ukraine if Russia stepped over the line. Do we think Trump would ever offer that? Or even be allowed to offer it by his MAGA supporters? And if he did, would any sensible leader in Europe believe it? The Europeans know that they have to keep talking to keep the show on the road in helping Ukraine. But in truth, they don't really believe in it. They just can't afford to let the US blame them if it all goes nowhere.
Professor Michael Clarke there. The chair of the BBC has told MPs that he regrets mistakes made over a misleading edit of Donald Trump in a Panorama documentary. Samir Shah was among a number of senior BBC figures giving evidence to the Culture, Media and Sport Committee today about the crisis prompted by the programme and the subsequent resignation of the corporation's Director General and Head of News. Our arts and entertainment correspondent Katie Spencer has more.
This was a chance to finally hear from some of those whose names have come up a lot as the drama has played out at the BBC, starting with Michael Prescott.
Do you regret writing the memo, Mr. Prescott?
Summoned before the Culture Committee, the former editorial advisor whose leaked memo brought a hailstorm upon the BBC started by insisting he's a strong supporter of theirs.
What troubled me was that during my 3 years on the BBC's Standards Committee, we kept seeing incipient problems which I thought were not being tackled properly. And indeed, I thought the problems were getting worse.
While he described the resignation of Tim Davie as a tragedy, he insisted the Director General had a blind spot, but stressed that he personally had no political agenda.
Whether people at the BBC think this stuff's been weaponised or not, surely that's a secondary issue. There are very specific things that have been going wrong.
As for his relationship with board member Sir Robbie Gibb, who's been accused of political interference and plotting, there was this.
Yes, I do know Robbie.
And would you call him a friend? Because there's all these rumours swirling around.
Yes, I think that's a fair description, yeah. If you operate in this country, in the sphere of politics, the media and so on, it's not that unusual to come across people you know.
The man himself then appeared straight after. This was the first time we'd seen Sir Robbie Gibb, a political appointee to the BBC board during Boris Johnson's government, who had this to say on how he's been discussed in the press.
There couldn't be a bigger mismatch between the way I'm presented in some quarters in relation to my attitude. I think I'd become weaponised in terms of how I'm perceived. Everyone would know me, I'm hugely impartial.
Summoned to speak alongside was BBC Chair Samir Shah and fellow board member Caroline Thompson. With critics questioning whether the board is still fit for purpose, it was important to present a united front.
Was there anything orchestrated about what's happened to the BBC over the last couple of weeks, the departure of Tim Davie, etc.?
It's up there as one of the most ridiculous charges. People had to find some angle. It's complete nonsense. It's also deeply offensive to fellow board members.
But Samir Shah conceded lessons had been learned, that the board was in the last 3 weeks too slow to respond.
It matters that we are just quicker and get on the front foot.
As for those questioning Samir Shah's leadership, the BBC chair came out fighting.
I think right now my job is to steer the ship out of the shop into an even keel and make sure, and the most important job I have right now is to recruit a Director General.
Questions answered, coup claims denied, and a clear message that the focus should now be on finding a new Director General. But whether this has been enough to satisfy those left with questions about this most recent scandal remains to be seen. Katie Spencer, Sky News.
The Reform UK leader Nigel Farage says he'd back a UK-wide investigation into foreign influence in British politics. Labour is calling for a probe into any links between Reform and Russia after the party's former Wales leader was jailed for taking cash to make pro-Russian statements in the European Parliament.
Is there a problem through British politics? There is. Is it extensive? I doubt it, but I don't know. Should we ask somebody with actual authority to investigate it? Yes.
So would you support calls then for a UK-wide investigation?
I think that's right, and I think there are doubts on all sides right at the moment. So, yes, that would be a good thing to do.
Well, let's go live to our chief political correspondent, John Craig. So welcoming an inquiry, John, but a broad one.
Yes, what's happened was that Mr Farage broke his silence,
some would say finally, after almost a week, about the jailing for more than 10 years of Nathan Gill. He was the Reform UK Party's leader in Wales some time back. Mr Farage said during the course of that interview that they hadn't spoken recently. He's no longer the leader. They haven't got a new leader yet. That'll come in the new year. But other political parties, of course, have been attacking Mr Farage over his links to Nathan Gill. And of course, Mr Farage has sort of turned it round and pointed to links where Chinese spies and so on have been infiltrating Parliament, something the Speaker's very alarmed about, and said there needs to be a full inquiry. Now, the other issue in which he's is a series of stories in the Guardian newspaper about claims that he used racist language when he was attending the elite Dulwich College, fee-paying school in South London many, many years ago. Claims that he was racist, sexist and so on, which Mr Farage, during the course of that interview, denied up to a point. He talked about playground banter at one point. This is a flavour of what Mr Farage had to say about that.
Can I remember everything that happened at school? No, I can't. Have I ever been part of an extremist organisation or engaged in direct, unpleasant personal abuse, genuine abuse on that basis? No.
You're not quite... That's very, very caveated. You're not quite ruling this out. The question is, did you ever racially abuse fellow pupils in school? No. You've caveated it with a hurtful way.
Not with intent.
What do you mean not with intent? I don't understand what you mean by not with intent. What does that mean?
You wouldn't do.
But what does that mean?
No.
Well, political opponents have accused Mr Farage of being evasive about that and indeed about Mr Gill, claiming that he didn't issue a complete denial. Political opponents will try and keep this row going. Mr Farage will hope that by subjecting himself to a fairly lengthy interview about both issues that he can move on. He was speaking at a rally in Llandudno in North Wales, and for Mr Farage, the political campaigning goes on, and the rows and the criticism will go on too.
John, in Westminster, thank you. A court has heard that a Palestine Action activist struck a police officer with a sledgehammer after a group allegedly broke into an Israel-based defence firm in Bristol. 6 people are on trial accused of breaking into the site in a prison van in August of last year. Well, our correspondent Sajid Chowdhury has more and joins me now. And video, Sajid, shown in court today.
Yeah, this video shows the dramatic scenes, a very chaotic scene when police attended that Elbit Systems UK site in August last year, as you say. And it is one of many videos that Thames Valley Police released today. And it shows activists in red boiler suits, some of them swinging sledgehammers. And this video, I've got to say, has been treated by Thames Valley Police. So those freezes and those arrows that you're seeing put in by them in order to identify the defendants. Sky News has muted the video because of all of the swearing in it. But if we didn't, you'd hear a lot of shouting and screaming and an alarm going off at that site. 6 people, as you say, are on trial, which prosecutors say was a meticulously organised attack on the site. All 6 deny charges of aggravated burglary, violent disorder, and criminal damage. Prosecutors say that these are all members of Palestine Action, and it is worth clarifying that these allegations, the ones in this case, came before Palestine Action was prescribed under terrorism laws in June. One of the 6 is Samuel Corner. He's further charged with causing grievous bodily harm. He denies striking 2 police officers with a sledgehammer. The officers gave evidence in court today. One of them said that he was scared as he was hit in the calf, and the other one said she felt a massive shock vibrating through her whole body, and that she described thinking that her spine had been shattered because she'd been hit in the back as she was kneeling down. The trial is very complex. It's set to last 10 weeks, and of course it is separate to the judicial review proceedings that are ongoing this week, which look into the prescription and the legality of that decision.
That trial continuing. Sajid, thank you. A man due in court this week accused of murdering a woman in August has been charged with murdering a second woman. Police say Simon Levy has been charged with murdering 53-year-old Carmenza Valencia Trujillo in London in March. He had earlier been charged with the murder of 39-year-old Cheryl Wilkins in North London in August. The police watchdog says 4 Northamptonshire officers should face misconduct proceedings after a woman was found dead in a car boot in Essex. 24-year-old Hashita Brella, whose body was discovered in Ilford last November, had reported allegations of abuse just months before. A US judge has dismissed criminal cases against the former FBI director, James Comey, and New York's Attorney General, Letitia James, both prominent Trump critics. Responding via a video posted online, Mr. Comey said he hopes it sends a message that the president can't use the Justice Department to target his political enemies. 2 peers are to be suspended from the House of Lords for breaking the rules on providing parliamentary services in return for payment or reward. The former head of the British Army, Lord Dannatt, faces a 4-month suspension, while Lord Evans of Watford will be suspended for 5 months. Russia and its ally Belarus had been banned from competing in the Olympics and Paralympics ever since the invasion of Ukraine in 2022. But now the International Paralympic Committee has made the decision to reinstate them, allowing athletes to compete under their own flag. The UK was one of 34 countries to sign a joint statement expressing serious concern over the move. Our sports correspondent Rob Harris sat down with the IPC president to discuss the decision.
As Ukraine faces pressure to accept a peace deal, Russia is already starting to be brought in from the cold by sport. The Paralympics lifting bans on Russia and war ally Belarus despite the conflict continuing, because it's now being claimed the invasion itself was never the reason for the ban. As for the first time since the countries were reinstated, the president of the International Paralympic Committee explains the decision to Sky News.
Russia and Belarus, they use Paralympic sport to promote their participation in the war and the conflict. And this is what led to the first suspension, the suspension in 23. Between 23 and now, in the discussion went around, obviously there is less evidence of that being used again for the promotion of the war. So this was important to clarify to our own membership, but also it has to do with the statement that was put out.
That's the statement criticising the Paralympic decision from a coalition of governments. They said, "We view this development with serious concern, given that the Russian aggression against Ukraine continues and the Russian and Belarusian breaches of the Olympic Charter remain." But this is what the IPC is now disputing, claiming their decision has been misunderstood by ministers. And as a global movement, it's facing questions within about inconsistencies banning some countries and not others at war.
The reason why we take action and propose the membership to suspend nations or not is not linked to participation in wars. The majority of the membership, they were expressing these views. Why only Russia and Belarus? And why not punish others if the case is only the war? Which, again, it's not, it's breach of the constitution.
But for the International Olympic Committee, bans on Russia and Belarus remain. Just this week, the United Nations adopted the Olympic truce for next year's Winter Games in Italy, a platform used by Ukraine to speak out.
The international community must maintain the suspension of Russian and Belarusian athletes from international sports competitions. Allowing their participation would undermine the integrity of sport as a contributor to peace, condone the ongoing killing of Ukrainian athletes and their coaches, and show disrespect to the hundreds of members of Ukraine's sports community who have been killed, injured, or displaced by this war.
Russia won't have a team at the Milan Cortina Winter Paralympics, largely because individual sports maintain their own bans. But it seems increasingly likely the Los Angeles 2028 Games will mark the end of Russia's exile after more than a decade of punishments for doping and war by the Olympics and Paralympics. Rob Harris, Sky News.
Tributes have been paid to the reggae pioneer Jimmy Cliff, who has died at the age of 81. He was best known for songs including The Harder They Come, Many Rivers to Cross and You Can Get It If You Really Want.
You can get it if you really want. You can get it if you really want. You can get it if you really want. But you must try, try and try, try and try. You'll succeed at last.
The two-time Grammy-nominated singer was widely acclaimed for bringing reggae to new audiences. Jamaica's Prime Minister called him a true cultural giant. Cliff's family said he passed away after a seizure and contracting pneumonia. Well, speaking in 1999, Jimmy Cliff explained why he believed so strongly in the power of music.
Music can highlight awareness, and from that awareness, people can take some kind of action to better the situation. I think that's the role music has played through the ages, and I think it's the role that it is playing now, and I think that is the role that it can play.
Jimmy Cliff there, who's passed away. Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview tonight, joined by the Daily Mirror columnist Kevin Maguire and the former First Minister of Northern Ireland, Baroness Foster. Welcome to both of you. So among the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front page of the Daily Mail, the headline, Chancellor Reeves plans to slash annual cash ISAs. More with that in just a moment.